Right. Well, that's super helpful. Thank you. That goes a long way. So let's shift gears then and talk about that dreaded E word that everybody is. So you hear it from both sides, right? They say the ego is something you're supposed to kill, and other folks are saying the ego is definitely absolutely not something you're supposed to kill. It's actually something you're supposed to come to terms with, understand, embrace, and move forward with. What's your
Yeah.
take on that?
Yeah. I would pose a question. Anyone who says that the ego is there to kill, or that they has said that they have killed their ego, I would ask them a question about their relationship with their ego 6 months from then, and
Mm.
and see, because as long as you have a conscious mind, the ego is going to be there. There is no destroying it. When you do, people do have very real experiences of you know killing their ego, but death in the universal language of the mind is all about transformation. So it's not that the ego ceases to exist, but that form and that shape and that relationship that they had with their ego is completely transformed. And then that's why I said wait 6 months, because a new relationship is building. It'll come out.
Right.
So I realize I'm the person who's out here saying there is no ego. There is no ego. I've killed it. And then now that's my ego. That's because ego is just your identity. It's how you identify.
Yeah, there you
So
go.
I mean,
I was going to back
yeah,
it up and ask, what is an ego for you? Like
yeah.
how can you recognize it?
Yeah, well, it's just how you identify. The ego is it's your motivating factor. It's your motivating force. It's what motivates us to do things. How I want to be seen by others, how I want to be seen in this world, the type of person that I want to be seen as, the way I want to be identified. All of those things motivate us in our actions and choices and what we want to do, who we want to talk to, who we want to have a relationship, where we want to be, where we want to live. it it shapes and motivates all of those choices and decisions. And so when you understand that relationship, then it's a lot easier to identify moments when your ego's more in control. Because that's really the main thing. Is like people, it's not that they have to kill their ego, they just have to learn how to master their ego instead of the ego being a master of them and being in
Mm.
control of their decisions. You won't be able to ever do this. Oh, I'll show you. You know?
Yeah, I hear that very clearly every day.
Well, it's so interesting because we think of the we think of the ego as like a negative thing,
Mhm.
but if you believe in the whole soul contract, then you chose your life, that you're living right now, which involves that ego. So you chose that
Mhm.
ego to go through this experience to learn something. So essentially, your ego is your teacher.
Hold up.
I know. I
Hold
know
up.
that.
Hold up. Since when do you believe in soul contracts?
I didn't say that. I said if you
She said
believe in
if.
soul contracts. I said if. You
Ah.
know what I believe. I don't tell you
Uh-huh.
everything.
Okay.
No, I'm just saying. But I thought that was a pretty good question.
It was a great question. I just surprised it came from you.
Oh, wow. I don't even know how to feel about that.
Just because you don't believe,
Wow.
you've said many times that you don't know about soul contracts. You have a
I
hard
don't
time.
know about soul contracts.
Okay, well, let's ask the expert. What do you think? Soul contract, yay or nay?
Well, this is a good question because you guys use two words a lot, and I always like to bring this up. You talked about what you believe, and you talk about what you know. And she said, I don't know if I didn't say I believed it. I don't know. And so that's a very big distinction that a lot of us need to really pay attention to. Well, not, I mean, you guys, anybody can do what they want, but that I need to really pay attention to is making a clear distinction in my mind on what I actually believe, what is a belief, and what do I actually know. So I always say all the time, don't believe a word you hear me say throughout this whole podcast, like not a single one, but instead find ways to incorporate different concepts into your own life to create experiences for yourself so that you can know what's true and what's not. Because experience is that difference maker between belief and knowledge. And as far as soul contracts, yeah, I 100% believe in soul contracts, but not necessarily like a contract with AT&T for my cell phone bill and I'm signing at the dotted line 6 different places, but just agreements. Yeah, like I married my wife, me and her made a commitment in this lifetime. There's other commitments that I have made with different people within my soul group before this lifetime. Okay, I am probably one with her. Hey, I'll find you. You find me. We have a lot of learning to do together, and let's help each other out with it. It's just agreements. So that's maybe a better way for people to receive and understand a more accurate picture of the relationship or of that versus like soul contracts, feeling like you're bound to something no matter what.
Right.
But yeah, the ego is new every single lifetime. And so it is formed from how your conscious mind was shaped, the environment that you grew up in, the family, the school, the other television programs and music you listen to and things. And so your ego is shaped by that. But yeah, it's not bad at all. Like in the Holy Bible, the ego is represented by the snake in the beginning. It evolves into Satan or the devil, and then it also evolves into the dragon. And so one of the key points that I like to point out with the ego in the Bible is like with Jesus, before he got crucified, he was like meditating for 40 days, and the devil came and tempted him and was like, "Hey, look at all this stuff that's yours. We can rule it together." And Jesus could have saved us all some trouble if all of that's true and just killed the devil, got rid of all the evil, and he didn't even have to get on the cross. We're done. We're all good. But he didn't. He didn't even tell him to leave. He didn't even say, "Get out of here, man. I'm doing something. I'm busy. I got something going on." Like, don't you know what's about to happen? I got to get my stuff together. I got to get prepared for this. All he said was, "Get behind me, Satan." And that's because Satan represents the ego, and it needs to be in the back, pushing us forward and motivating, with us out front in the lead. And so we have to learn how to be in control of the ego and motivate ourselves. Whenever we have an ego reaction, instead of just reacting to it, having a still mind to be able to properly respond in a proper way and make more of a conscious choice on how we're going to move about through whatever came up with that ego reaction. So when somebody says, "Oh, you can't do this," I can then stop and make a choice and decide whether it is something or not. Like when I was young, it makes me think of when I was younger. I was a knucklehead. I'm a Taurus bull. So before I started meditating and everything, I was very confrontational and things. So someone would be like, "Oh, Tarak, you're a B." I don't know what we can say on here, but I would just have an ego.
You can say whatever you want.
I'd be like, "Man, Tarak, you're a bitch." And I'd be like, "Oh, you're gonna prove that to me right now." I didn't consciously choose to get into an altercation with this person, but my ego reared its head and said, "You're gonna do this. You need to respond to this." Whereas now I would probably just laugh at it. I know who I am. I don't care what you think.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's all well and good, but now we need to turn to the expert. And now we know we got to get the ego behind us. How? How do you do that? Because man, we think we got it beaten. It's behind us, and all of a sudden you turn around and go, "What? How'd you get here?" Right? The ego is always in front of us for some reason, and we got to figure out how do you maintain that focus to keep that ego in check?
It's a constant relationship. It's a constant relationship that you have to, because it's always evolving. The more that you evolve with it, the more it will evolve. The more work that you do, I've practiced a lot of concentration and willpower and meditation. I'm lucid dreaming now and working through things and changing things within myself through my dreams. And now I'm Tarak Uday, this metaphysical master, and I'm on this podcast. And so now I've killed off my ego, and now I have no ego to deal with. It's just me. I'm so supreme and superior. And so now there's the new relationship with the ego. That's my new identity. So now I have it's just constant work. And the main thing that I would suggest is just awareness and observation, which will come through more concentration, having more awareness of your thoughts, understanding the mechanics of your thoughts, the mechanics of your mind, how a thought comes into your mind, the difference between a conscious thought, a subconscious thought, an intuitive thought, and the difference between a thought from the ego. And so the more attention that you can place on these things, then the easier it is to identify when it is an ego thought, when it is an ego reaction popping up in your mind, so that you can then okay, hold on. Whatever I end up doing, let me at least take a minute. This guy's confronting me. If I sock him in the face, let me at least make a choice about it first before his four buddies walk around the corner.
Right. That's another choice. So run.
Yeah. So, and with practice, that's where the purpose of building these different skills comes in, because then it allows you it to be easier when these different ego reactions come up, when these different difficulties in life come up, and you have to then respond to things, then your ability to respond, your responsibility. And so that's what I would say is how you do it, because it's going to be different as the relationship evolves. And
Right.
so if early on you're going to have, it may be stronger as the ego because the dragon in all dragon movies, that's talking about the ego and the relationship of the ego. But the dragon never is always there to help some feeble little kid, but it never destroys them, but it's always there to help, willing to help them for some reason. And so as the relationship gets stronger, then it's easier to tell the ego what to do. It's easier to motivate. You understand how the ego works. And so it's easier to set up your life to where one thing that I always do is I have multiple goals to where as soon as I do reach a goal, I already have 5 more that I've been working at and working on, to where once it's there, it's a celebration. Okay, great, but I still have a lot of things going on.
Mhm.
And so that's one thing where you can understand how the ego works and understand how to navigate and avoid certain ego reactions at different times.
That's awesome.
I would imagine that sometimes you might need an ego reaction, like when you're in the hall with those guys and there's 4 around the corner and you're like, oh, I should be kind. Bam.
I think the ego would be like, I could take them.
That's what I mean. I mean, better than if you're like in the dead end, you got to do something.
Well, I'm sure LeBron James or Michael Jordan or Tom Brady would have never achieved what they did if they didn't have those egos. I want to be known as the greatest. That's how I want to identify. Tom Brady wouldn't have played until he was 44.
Right.
That wasn't
I still think he's coming back too, but
your ego's like Jimmy Cricket.
Yeah,
but you gotta sometimes in a little cage.
Jimmy Cricket becomes like, I don't know, some giant thing on your shoulder after a while. That ego, I mean, it's.
I thought you meant actual Jimmy Cricket.
No.
Really? I missed that part of the story.
that's.
I was thinking back too. I was like, when did he grow?
I know what happened. What did he eat?
No. It's a metaphor, people. Come on, metaphor. But I think I figured out a way to keep your ego in check. Every time I get myself up and all of a sudden get all my ego, I know I've got the surefire way to keep it in check. I got married. On that note, we're talking to Tarak Uday, who is a spiritual mentor, and he is helping us dive deeply into some of these metaphysical concepts, because what he does is he actually helps people to come to terms with spirituality with ancient metaphysical techniques, but applied in a new modern way. And so it's been a really exciting conversation, because you're giving us like actual practical tips on how to strengthen these things, these practices that we all need.
I love that too, because now now our lovely listeners can hear this, these people.
Somebody help these people.